Hi, friends, and thanks for coming back to my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be talking about perfectionism. And perfectionism is something that I have talked about on my podcast before, but I think talking about it in this context with the visuals that I'm providing over on YouTube is really important because perfectionism for ADHDers is not always what we think perfectionism presents itself as. Because so often we have this picture of, well, if you're a perfectionist, that means that you're doing all the things, you're getting it done and you're getting it done perfectly. But oftentimes for us, perfectionism looks like, well, I'm not even going to start the thing. Why bother? I'm not going to be able to do it right. So why even start at all? Or it's, well, I did it perfectly that time, but I don't think I can do it perfectly again. So I'm just not going to do it. This is the battle that most ADHDers have when it comes to perfectionism. So what I want to talk about today is a sampling of my perfectionism unit because this is a real struggle. And it's not just a struggle for ADHDers. There are plenty of neurotypical people that can be impacted by perfectionism. But for us, the perfectionism usually develops as a shield. It's something that we've put on ourselves to protect ourselves, to be able to, function in a society that really, really isn't built for us. So what we're going to talk about today is how to shift some of those mindsets. And if what we're going to talk about today does resonate with you, I do have a couple of classes coming up going more into perfectionism and management. This is just the start of it all, the tip of the iceberg, if you will. So I'm actually going to provide some visuals for this, and we're going to talk through it all together. So let's dive in. So when we're talking about perfectionism, like I said, it is not just, oh, I must do it all perfectly. It's also the refusal to accept any standard short of perfection. So I can't even bother touching it because it won't be perfect is a refusal to accept that other standard too. We have a lot of common traits that come up with perfectionism. The first, of course, being that perfectionists tend to be highly critical and especially very critical of themselves, that we constantly feel like we are not enough. We are not doing enough. We are not good enough. We will not be successful enough or valuable enough. And so we are going to criticize everything about ourselves. But this can also translate into that criticism being put onto those around us too. And because of this, we can really be paralyzed by fear. Usually it's that fear of failure. That's usually where the fear comes from. But it's also a fear that we won't be accepted, a fear that we won't find the community that we need to find, that we won't have the life that we want to have. Perfectionism also presents with all or nothing mentality, that if I do not succeed, then I have failed, that it's not, oh, I can try again, that it's black and white. And now ADHDers know that that all or nothing mentality is basically our whole existence. We are constantly in a battle with that flexible thinking, that we can be really inflexible and think that it's got to be this way or this way. And we have a hard time seeing the shades of gray. And if you throw in any autism, then oh my goodness, there is definitely going to be a lot of rigid thinking there. And I can truly say from my own personal journey that this is one of the biggest things that I've had to work on in therapy, because that black and white, all or nothing mentality meant that I was stuck a lot of the time. Because if I couldn't see the shades of gray, if I couldn't see the choices in between, then I would have nowhere to move. Not having choices in my head, thinking that it was one or the other and nothing else, left me feeling stuck and paralyzed all the time. And now my go-to is, okay, so what are the options here? We recently had a possibility that we might need to move. And right now, there is not a lot on the market, especially within the budget that we need so that we can save to buy a home. And so the black and white side of me wanted to be like, well, no, we have to stay here or we're going to be homeless. that was where my head went first. But the reality wasn't that. The reality was, okay, well, there are choices. We can try to find something that has the amount of bedrooms that we need. We can try to find something that, fits our needs in another way. Or, I could find an office space and we could get something that, is just a 2-bedroom. But luckily, that's not the circumstance. We are staying put. We're renewing our lease. We're good. But that all or nothing mentality really wanted to kick in and turn on right away and get me into that black and white of the situation. And that would have left me so stuck. Then being a perfectionist means that we're also likely very goal or results focused. So, this would be more on that like other side of perfectionism where, nope, I must constantly be going towards this, this, and this. And when we're very goal focused, so this is something that I'm seeing, in my neurodivergent mind and body group, which is amazing. And you can still sign up because all of the info is out there for the entire month. So, and we're still in week 1, friends. So I highly encourage you to go check it out, as it is a self-paced resource. But being very goal or results focused, let's talk about in that mind and body group. So, someone might be really results focused on, well, I must, be incredibly active or lose a certain amount of weight, which isn't, what the goal of the group necessarily is. The goal of the group is incorporating wellness to better help your ADHD brain, incorporating movement and how to shift, when even just feeding yourself is hard, how do we make it a little easier? Because we're working on the executive dysfunction of taking care of ourselves. We're working on moving our bodies in different and fun ways, grounding ourselves, connecting our mind and body. That's the yoga and breathwork instruction that happened today was incredible for that, for you just learning that, hey, my mind and body are intertwined, even though I disconnect them pretty often. So that's what the purpose of the group is, but there's still this need when we talk about wellness that, oh, well, I have to, quantify it somehow. I have to put a certain number on the scale and then I've met my goal. Releasing those things means releasing a little of that perfectionism. And my gosh, it changes so much. And the other part of the perfectionism is that if we don't meet those goals, it can completely deplete our mood. And then that can also result in defensiveness. An example that I like to use here is over the summer, my partner needed the car and my car had just broken down. And so I went to the grocery store and he needed the car at 5:00. Well, I got home, I want to say at like 5:10. And he was like, I thought you left at 3. Were you really in the grocery store for that long? And I was like, no, I left at 4. I was adamant and defensive that I left at 4:00 because I didn't want to admit that I made a mistake. My time blindness kicked in and I had really spent 2 hours at the grocery store, which, I think we've all done that at some point, right? Because the grocery store, 1, can get super overwhelming. And 2, if you're like really on a mission to like fill your entire pantry, which I was that day, that time just goes by. I also was trying to listen to a few podcasts, and I think I got kind of caught up in just like the pace of walking up and down and looking at every single thing in the aisle and then standing there and getting some decision overwhelm. So yeah, it was a 2-hour process that I did not want to admit was a 2-hour process, because even though I consider myself a recovering perfectionist, that doesn't mean it just magically goes away. It is still something that I actively need to work on day in and day out to release that perfectionism, to transition into just having high standards as opposed to unrealistic expectations. But perfectionism can also result in procrastination. Oh, I don't have the right materials, so I can't do it yet. I had a sewing machine that I refused to touch for years because I didn't know how to use it. And because I didn't have the perfect knowledge, because I didn't know if I would succeed at using it, it just sat in a box. And it didn't get pulled out until COVID started. And I did a like Zoom call with my friend who taught me how to use the sewing machine. And then I made like two or three things and was like, oh, that wasn't what I built it up in my brain to be all these years. But I procrastinated for years to even touch it because I was so scared. I was so scared that I wasn't going to do a good job. And perfectionism really does cause low self esteem. It can be scary to, not meet those goals, but also it can be really damaging because when we feel like we're not enough, that place is really hard to live in. Perfectionism also can cause some competitiveness. We used to joke around that, oh no, I just get the competitiveness from my dad. No, I got the perfectionism from him. And that's what made us competitive, was it had to be good enough. And then perfectionism can result in us being controlling. Because if we can control the whole situation, then it will go exactly how we had in mind. And that's just not realistic. So I want you to take a moment and ask yourself, what does perfect mean to you? If you're really sitting and thinking about it, what does that mean? And now we're going to talk about perfection versus high standards, because there is a difference. It is okay to have high standards for yourself. It's okay to have big goals for yourself, as long as those goals don't paralyze you, because those goals are supposed to help move us forward. They're not supposed to keep us stuck, to keep us hurting, to keep us in one place that we can't move from ever. Perfection is different than high standards. Perfection sits there and says, nope, I can never make a mistake ever. Again, it's that all or nothing. Because if I make a mistake, then I am a failure. Instead of the person with high standards who goes, you know what, I really do want to try to avoid mistakes, but I can learn from them if they happen. It's not a bad thing if I make a mistake, it's a lesson. I mean, think about some of the the most iconic people. They're, Oprah Winfrey, she was fired from her journalism job and now is one of the most powerful women ever and such an incredible role model to so many. She made mistakes and she learned from those mistakes. And that really is an inspiration, because that teaches us that, it doesn't have to be perfect, because each mistake is something that we can have that education and growth from. But a perfectionist, they're going to sit there and say, nope, failure is not an option. But, the person with high standards says, oh, failure is a part of life. And that brings it back to, Oprah or Michael Jordan. Some of the most successful people overcame great failings. And if you are watching the visual of this, you will see that I made a mistake here. Oh no, I switched the O and the F for of. Huh. Well, I guess I can learn from that mistake and just try to check my work better next time. Mistakes are part of life. And I do not just become a failure for this tiny little spelling error. A perfectionist will sit there, and they usually are also people pleasers. So they're going to sit and think, you know what? I'm going to do whatever I need to do to ensure that people like me. I'm going to give gifts. I'm going to give all of my time. I'm going to make sure that this person is happy so they don't go anywhere. We will never make everyone happy. And I wish I could say otherwise, but it's true. Think about yourself. I mean, does every single person in your life make you happy 100% of the time? Probably not, because that's unrealistic. And to hold someone to that standard is also unrealistic. So why hold yourself to that? That's really unfair. Someone with high standards will be kind and respectful, but that doesn't mean that everyone's going to like them. And this is a really hard one for me. I've battled this a lot on my own personal journey, especially when I battled other people spreading lies and rumors against me a few years ago. Um, a relationship in my life had ended, and there were very blatant lies being told. And, at first I was like, no, I need to defend myself. But the reality is, that person who was spreading those lies, they're hurting. And they know that I'm fine. I am fine without them. So they needed to do that to help themselves. And honestly, I don't care. I really don't care, because I am at so much better of a place now than I ever imagined that I could be. I am the happiest I've ever been in my life. I am the most successful that I ever thought I could be. And that is in spite of all of those things being said negatively about me. Because any negative thing that I said about them, I've got receipts for. I know the errors that they made and know the hurt that they caused, and also know, you know, where they sent money to in foreign countries. But that's okay, because for me, I am kind and respectful. I know that there's people that those lies have been told to that aren't going to like me. And I know there's people that are just going to scroll through my social media and be like, oh, she seems pretty chuggy. Ooh, she seems like she might be a little stuck up. Ooh, I don't like her. Okay. When I was struggling with perfectionism day in and day out, no, I would have never been able to say, okay. But now I can, because I know my worth. I know my value. I know what I bring to the table. I know the help that I provide. And that is because I am not worried about being perfect anymore. I want to do my best. I have high standards for myself. I have a 5-year plan. Also, never thought I'd have a 5-year plan, but I do, because I know what I can give. And I want to keep building and giving more to this community, because this community, the neurodivergent community, specifically the ADHD and autism communities, they are part of me. But I know even in those communities, not everybody's going to like me. Not everybody's going to vibe with me. Some people are going to be like, oh, she talks too slow. Oh, she does this. Oh, she does that. Oh, she, gives this advice and I don't like it. That's fine. There are plenty of other voices that can be helpful. I hope that I can be helpful to you. I really do. But it's okay if I'm not. I'm not a failure if I'm not, because not everyone is going to like everyone. And that means that not everyone is going to like me. I'm just going to do my best to be kind. Not nice. Nice is fake, but kind, where it is genuine, where I really do care about the people in my life, especially my clients. My gosh, I care so much. Then we get into the last thing of a comparison of perfectionism and high standards. Oh no, there's another error on my slide. Ah, that's okay. Because friends, we can learn from our mistakes. It's all right. You are not a failure if you make a tiny mistake. You are not a complete waste of existence if you make a bigger mistake. We can learn and grow from them. But the perfectionist, will sit there and say, well, I need to be in control. I need to look like a strong leader at all times. And that's really looking at like those like business type professionals and those types of perfectionists, right? Where it's like, I can't show any emotion. I've got to be strong, got to be in control. Can't let anyone see the real me. I can't be vulnerable. Well, vulnerability is real. And a person with high standards knows that, well, strong doesn't mean that you can't let your emotions show ever. Just do your best to manage your reactions the best that you can. There's a time and place for certain outbursts. But if you get into a different emotion that isn't as widely accepted, you are not a failure for that. So I want to talk before we end today about a few different types of perfectionism, because these are things that we struggle with without even necessarily realizing that we struggle with. And if any of this is hitting home for you, I highly encourage you to check out my class this weekend. It's recorded. So if you can't attend the whole thing, if you can only attend an hour or two, this is something worth learning more about. This is something worth diving deeper on. But there are three primary types of perfectionism. The first being socially prescribed. Now, this is the most common type of perfectionism, not just for ADHDers, not just for autistic people, but for people in general, because socially prescribed perfectionism is the perfectionism that is placed upon us by our society. The high expectations, the unrealistic expectations that society presents to us, so that we constantly worry about how we're seen and perceived by others, and automatically assuming that others are going to judge you in a bad way. Yeah, because we do sit there and think that sometimes. We do sit there and go, oh, yeah, people are not going to like me if I do this, so I might as well not do it. Who cares if it makes me happy? You know what people would probably judge me for? Walking around wearing a tiara, or the fact that I have in my office a whole section dedicated to Disney's Hercules. I kid you not. I have the pop figures. I have a little Pegasus stuffed animal. I have a collection of books. And oh my goodness, sitting right here on my desk, because honestly, doing like the full-blown coloring books, my ADHD cannot always handle it. So having coloring books that are simpler, but still help make my brain happy is great. Here it is, a Hercules coloring book. I used to care so much about what people thought that I would hide those interests or only share them with a select few. Literally half of my TikTok is me just being myself now, and it is so freeing. It is incredible to just be me and to show that, hey, I am not an epic failure because I am me. And me does not mean that I need to have a specific set of interests to make other people happy, because my interests are for me, not other people. So if I am interested in something that may seem childish to someone else, well, that's okay. You don't have to like it. I do. There are plenty of things that I am very interested in that I know others wouldn't be, that are, more mature, if you will. I love psychology. I love learning about the human brain. I love learning about how people tick and why they do the things that they do. And I'm actually joining in on a symposium on autism coming up at the end of the month, because I am so excited to learn as much as I can. And there's also a whole unit on the nervous system and autism. And oh my goodness, polyvagal theory is something that I teach to all of my clients, because it is an integral part of knowing who we are and how we function and how we get into that place of overwhelm. And I could talk about it for hours, and that might be a really great podcast episode. I think we'll be going there next month. But socially prescribed perfectionism used to stop me from loving these things, used to stop me from sharing that I love these things, because society might look at me wrong for it. Society might think that, oh, well, you're not an adult. I pay my bills. My house is clean. I function. I have my own business. What qualifies an adult? I mean, those things do. And heck, cleaning your home is morally neutral. That's not even like an adult thing. That's just there's so much put on our shoulders. So much. And it's because we live in a society that's not built for us either. So it makes it so much harder when you're an ADHDer, is you are constantly being told, nope, that's wrong. In fact, I did a video earlier on holding a pencil, which made me think about how really screwed up all of the way that we do things really is, because I don't hold a pencil correctly. I don't. I hold it actually between my thumb and my pinky finger primarily, and I let it rest on like the knuckle by my pointer finger. Yeah, it's not the right way to do it. But for years, I was forced to use like those pencil grips that like had the little notches in them so that you held the pencil correctly, that it forced your fingers to do it differently. When my handwriting's fine, like it's not that bad. I mean, sure, sometimes it's a little sloppier than others because my hand got tired, but in reality, like I have pretty neat handwriting when I try. And I don't understand if I was doing the thing that was expected, which was to write my name, to write my letters, to write my numbers. If I was doing that, why was I being forced to do it a different way just because that's the way they wanted me to do it? I was still meeting the expectation. But like, this is the way our society is, that you were told already as a child, like, no, 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 no. That's not good enough. You're not doing it right. What is right? I wrote my name, I wrote my letters, I wrote my numbers. That's right. Just because I didn't hold my fingers a certain way on a pencil to do that, to get the end result that was expected, doesn't mean that I was wrong. Just means I was doing it different. Different is not wrong. Okay, done with that side tangent. Let's get back to socially prescribed perfectionism. So yeah, we're going to automatically assume that others are going to judge us in a bad way. We might also say things like, well, people expect me to do everything correctly. And if I make a mistake, others will judge me and think I'm incompetent. That's a big one. What if someone thinks I'm stupid? Yeah, that's a hard one. And with socially prescribed perfectionism, other people's approval is very important. And this actually might result then in excessive apologizing, because we feel like we're constantly doing things wrong. Then I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't do it good enough. I'm so sorry. And ADHDers then wind up apologizing just for existing. Our brains are programmed differently. We're not always going to be on time. Instead of I'm sorry, I challenge you to try thank you. That's a hard one. It feels really uncomfortable. But instead of bringing the negativity of, ooh, I made a mistake into it, thank you for your patience. Thanks for waiting for me. That 5 minutes might have been annoying, but I really appreciate that you waited for me. Or, that I just went on that little tangent there about the handwriting. Thank you all for listening. Thanks for understanding that I had something else to say. And yeah, it was a little off topic, but still came back full circle. It's what an ADHD brain does best, right? We ride around that tornado until we get back to the point we started with. And with socially prescribed perfectionism, we are constantly seeking reassurance from others. Did I do a good enough job? Did I do it well? Do I earn the gold star? Yeah, because we're taught from a very young age that approval and acceptance is necessary. We're not taught that we need to love and accept ourselves. We're taught that we need to earn others' acceptance. We're set up from the beginning to go down the road of perfectionism. And that is so unfair, especially to place that on little kids. Come on. Then we get into self-oriented perfectionism. So this is the perfection that we place on ourselves then, usually as a result of the socially prescribed. So society says, do it this way. And then we go, oh, yeah, I really got to do it that way. So then we get into the areas where, oh, no, we have trouble admitting when we've made mistakes. Can't tell anyone that I did something wrong because then they might think that I'm stupid. Think about how you respond to other people's mistakes. Are you as mean to them as you are to yourself? Just think on that. Self-oriented perfectionism might also look like having really unrealistic and unattainable standards for yourself. So I was talking to someone about movement and how the all or nothing mentality gets them into the idea that, well, if I'm going to be exercising, then I must be going to the gym 7 days a week, working my ass off for at least an hour every single day. Now, if you're working a full-time job like they are, and it's funny because movement has come up in this all or nothing capacity a few times this week, and also, again, over in neurodivergent mind and body. And that's one of the things that we're working through, right? Are this executive dysfunction, the perfectionism of all of that comes with the mind and body pieces. But if you are setting yourself up and saying that, no, I must do it this way, and you work a full-time job and you have a family like this person does, and you also work beyond the full-time hours at your job, and then you're also expecting to train for a marathon. How and when are you going to fit in that hour every single day if you're working 14 days or 14 hours a day? And then doing all this other stuff and also wanting to see your children and your partner. That's unfair. Instead, you could make like 3 days a week be gym days and then find a way to move with your kids at home. That's a shade of gray. Self-oriented perfectionism also looks like, no, I just can't make mistakes because if I do, then I'm a failure. That's it. Black and white. Again, all or nothing. Life is not all or nothing. There are always choices. We may not like all the choices. There may be choices in there that are not the best for us, but it's still good to know we have them. So when I was newly single 3 years ago, one of the things that I had to tell myself as a choice was, okay, so I can keep working at the school, which is not a very sustainable income, but I can do it. And if I have to, because I also had a jewelry business at the time, so that was giving me some supplemental income, which was really helping me make sure that, I had food on my table, my bills were paid, I was good. But there were other options. Like if I had to, I could go work a second job. If I had to, I could have gone back and lived with my parents longer. If I had to, I could have gotten a roommate. I didn't like every single choice that I had, but that didn't mean that they weren't there. Just because we don't like all the choices doesn't mean they don't exist. And sometimes we do need to take a choice that we're not a huge fan of. In the meantime, just because we choose something that we don't necessarily like altogether, but is helpful at the time, doesn't mean we're stuck with it. It's not the only option we ever have. And when we have self-oriented perfectionism, what can wind up happening as well is that we work ourselves to the point of mental or physical exhaustion at the expense of time with family and friends. And that person that I was talking about earlier, that was what they were doing. And they realized that. And I'm so proud of them for realizing that, because that's hard. That is hard to say, oh, yeah, I'm killing myself right now. I'm doing too much. I also want to take a moment to encourage an amazing book. It's so good. It's one of my favorites. It's Do Nothing by Celeste Headlee. And it is, well, how to break away from overworking, overdoing, and underliving, because we live in a society where we're not allowed to have things that we love. We're not allowed to have leisure time because it's cool to say that I'm so busy. Right? Like, think about the last time you talked to a friend. What's one of the first things that you said when you were catching up? Oh, it's been so busy. Because we live in a society where it's encouraged to be busy. Forget having a personal life, forget doing things that you love, forget leisure time and just having value for existing. No, you must be busy and productive. That's what our society says. And then we get into other oriented perfectionism. So this is the third type of perfectionism that we're going to talk about today on the podcast and the YouTube. Other oriented perfectionism is the perfection that we place upon others. So, again, this is kind of like a chain reaction. So most of us have some layer of socially prescribed perfectionism, neurodivergent or otherwise. Then that becomes self-oriented perfectionism that we place on ourselves. And then the deeper layer of that is other oriented perfectionism, which is the perfectionistic standards that we put onto others, holding them to unrealistic and unattainable standards. And that can result in trouble trusting others, because if we see that they're making mistakes, then we're going to say, oh, well, they can't be trusted because they made a mistake. They didn't do it exactly how I would have done it. So I must do it now every other time because they clearly can't do it. Well, that's unfair to both of you. And then we also get into the idea that, well, others must meet the same expectations that we have for ourselves. Well, if I were to expect someone who, I don't know, who doesn't have the training that I do on ADHD to go and be able to help their kid with ADHD with no knowledge of how to help their kid, that would be a really unrealistic expectation. I can expect that of myself because I have the knowledge. I can help my partner's children because I know how to help. But I couldn't place that on someone else. Now, I could work with them. I could teach them. We could work together so that they learn and then they can help their kid. But to just expect that every parent with an ADHD kid is going to know exactly what to do, even when you know what to do, you're still a parent. Like, kids are unpredictable, and especially an ADHD kid. But here's the other thing that happens. When you have other oriented perfectionism, when you fear that others are going to make mistakes and then that's going to result in failure that makes them untrustworthy, then you're going to refuse to delegate. I'll just do it myself. That's what's going to wind up happening. And I've done this. I have done this time and time again. No, it's not going to look exactly how I want it to look. You can't do it that way. You're not going to do it good enough. So I'm just going to do it. And then that also, can result in that criticism and critiquing others, which is unfair too. So what do we want results wise from all of this? Well, we want to get to a place where progress is more important than perfection. So the place of progress is that good enough is enough. Perfectionism says, no, it's never good enough. I must do more. I must burn the candle at both ends. Progress says, you know what? I'm going to focus on what can be. What can I turn this into? What exciting adventure can I take with this? Perfection focuses on what isn't. Progress looks at things as an opportunity to grow because we're progressing, we're moving forward. What can I develop from all of this? But perfection is judgmental and critical, and it's still not good enough. And lastly, progress meets you with compassion that, hey, friend, I know you're doing your best. I know you're trying really hard. You can keep trying. You're doing awesome. Whereas perfection is shame. Look at you. You suck. You're so lazy. What's wrong with you? Why can't you get up and fold that laundry? I mean, it's so simple. Just fold the laundry. Your mom can fold the laundry. I don't know how that turned into a your mom joke. But that's the thing. Like it it's something we put on ourselves constantly, and it's so unfair to do. You are valuable just for being here. And there are so many other reasons that perfectionism develops. There are ways that we can work through perfectionism. There are so many things to learn if you want to come and attend this weekend. Because even if you can't be there the whole time, it's going to be recorded. So even if you just sign up, you get access to everything. You are doing your best. So let's work together to help you learn that your best is enough. You are enough. This is something that every neurodivergent person needs to hear, because we are constantly made to feel like we're not enough. And you are. Thanks for joining me today, guys. And I really hope to see you guys in one of my upcoming courses for this, because this is something that I wish every ADHDer could learn, because it is so life-changing. Because I've had this battle too. And I'm not perfect even in how I recover from perfectionism. It's okay though. It's okay. Have a great day, guys. Thanks for being here. And I'm so glad that you are you.